In this video, I'm all dressed up and it's the end of the year, so that means it's time for the 2024 Tabletop Minions Awards. It's been a pretty good year for the wargaming hobby, mostly in the indie space, if I'm honest. I mean, sure, Games Workshop put out a new version of Age of Sigmar and a new version of Kill Team in 2024, but neither of them made my list of awards this year. Spoiler alert. That said, there is a new GW product. Well, new is maybe the wrong word, but there is a new-ish GW product on my list this year. It's been a while. So let's get into the awards. Feel free to discuss them in the comments down below, whether you want to do it while you're watching or wait till the end. It's totally up to you. These awards are in no particular order. Our first winner for 2024 is Battlefront Valkyrie from Fat Dragon Games, which I talked about as one of several examples in a recent video about the future of wargames. Pachow. And I really think it's an interesting direction for wargaming and also a very neat game as well. It's a spaceship combat game, which is nothing new necessarily, but it also includes 3D printable STL files of all the ships with also, the PDF of the game rules and 3D printable tokens and status trackers and terrain and everything else. A complete package game, if you will, but downloadable. And the STL files are optimized to be printed with an FDM, filament printer instead of a liquid resin printer, which will make it far easier for more people to print the ships and terrain and all the other stuff. They can still be printed with resin if you want to, but they look surprisingly good in FDM when you use a smaller nozzle. For me, the rules have been just the kind of right amount of crunch, like nothing crazy like Starfleet Battles, which if you know, you know, but maybe a bit more kind of like Star Wars X-Wing 1.0 in my opinion. Still a little bit rules light, which I prefer. And since they launched it on Wargame Vault in late October 2024, they've already produced 2 new add-ons to expand the game if you want to. The first one adds cool broken space station terrain and all that kind of stuff to put on the board, and kind of have to fly around all that stuff, plus also some new scenarios. And the second one adds 2 new Terran ships to the game. And they have even more expansions planned in 2025 as well, from what I gather. The games are inexpensive, downloadable, and fun, and the ships are a hoot to paint as well. If you have an FDM 3D printer or a friend with one, you might want to check it out. Link is down in the description below. This next piece isn't really new at all. It's kind of old, actually, and I've wanted it for a long time. However, it only recently became available again, and that finally allowed me to get it last month. It's the Fortified Manor of the Empire terrain box from a small little company called Games Workshop, and it's honestly only the second time that I've been glad that the Old World was released or, re-released or whatever you want to say. First time being, with the re-release of the chunky Tomb King skellies with the tower shields and the giant hands. I never played Warhammer Fantasy back in the day. If you know me, you know it's because I don't enjoy rank and flank style games. But I always loved many of the fantasy models, and especially the terrain. I don't know who was sculpting the fantasy terrain in the last decade of Warhammer Fantasy, and GW probably won't let us know, but I always really loved that terrain. I have a bunch of the older stuff, like the cemetery, which I think they called the Garden of Moor at some point, and the big Wizard's Tower thing and all that kind of stuff. But I always loved the buildings found in this new box, which seems like a mix of kind of several different kits. Since it's Games Workshop, this kit is currently marked temporarily out of stock on the website, but maybe your local store already has it in stock if they carry the Old World stuff, or, you can always click the Notify When Available button on the website and you'll get an email when they make more. That's actually what I had to do, and I didn't have to wait that long, maybe a couple of weeks. My plan is to mainly use it for fantasy games, obviously, like Death Wizards from Vince Venturella and I, but it'll work well enough with most fantasy games as well. Our next winner is a game that I grabbed at the beginning of 2024 after seeing it at a few different gaming conventions that I went to. I ordered the 2-player starter, painted it, bought more models at Adepticon 2024, and have enjoyed the gameplay and models immensely. It's called Blackout, spelled B-L-K-O-U-T in all caps, from Enemy Spotted Studios. I first mentioned this game here on the channel, I think, in the new Skirmish Games with Potential video 7 or so months ago, Pachow, and I've seen it at more conventions and in more bat reps and stuff like that ever since. They refer to it as an ultra-tactical sci-fi tabletop wargame, and I think that description is pretty apt. It plays very quickly. Most games are under 60 minutes, and the sci-fi models feel more grounded in sci-fi reality than in sci-fi fantasy, right? I'm reminded kind of the movies of Neil Blomkamp, District 9, Elysium, Chappie, that type of thing. And I think that it's kind of something that's missing in a lot of sci-fi miniatures these days. Since release, they've added several expansions like Impact, Wetwork, and Badlands that allow you to play in new different ways with new scenarios on the planet of Abol. You can order the 2-player starter in either cast resin or 3D printed resin. I like the 3D printed resin because it's all one piece, right? When it comes out of the printer, it's already finished and everything like that, and then I don't have to put the models together. But if you like kind of posing the models a little bit and stuff, then take a look at the cast resin version. Also, it's a game that plays usually on a smaller 2-foot by 2-foot board, which I've really started to like more with my skirmish games. If you put like a lot of terrain on that smaller board, then you'll get really fraught, kind of tactically impactful gameplay. As with all the winners, take a look at it down in the description below. Our next winner has made a lot of news this year, mostly towards the end of the year. Trench Crusade from Factory Fortress Incorporated. I talked recently about their impressive Kickstarter campaign, Pachow, and how it raised $3.3 million. Now, according to them, with the Pledge Manager launched and people adding stuff to their pledges and stuff like that, I did the same. That number has swelled to over $5 million, which is very impressive for a pretty small company making their first game together. However, most of the folks involved in Trench Crusade are actually veterans of game production both in tabletop and in video games. The Trench Crusade idea was formed by Mike Francina, a concept artist for video game juggernauts like Diablo, Diablo 2, Diablo 3, etc., and others. The game design, the rules design, is from Thomas Piernan, who is best known by me and many others for designing Mordheim, the late 90s cult classic fantasy skirmish game from Games Workshop. In Trench Crusade, the Great Crusades from back in the 11th century never ended, and now it's 1914, and they're still going on, and it's the church versus actual hell forces, right? It's bloody, brutal, and steeped in religious imagery and themes. As they're a small company, they depended mostly on selling STL 3D printer files in the Kickstarter. For those that backed the Kickstarter, your 3D files just recently became available, last week before Christmas. They're also offering print-on-demand models as well, and those are in progress and will start shipping soon, maybe in the next 2 to 3 months. That said, the game is designed for miniature-agnostic play if you'd rather kit-bash your own minis, and always will be from what they've said. Also, the rules will be available to buy in book format if you want a physically printed book, but are also available as free downloads. So you can check them out now. Link down in the description. 1490 Doom is a small fantasy skirmish game from Buer Games, which I hope I'm pronouncing properly. I'm not 100% sure. The story is that it's in the 1490s or so, and the Earth is kind of rebelling against us. There is a poisonous mist coming up from the soil, and it's killing crops, then livestock, and now it's killing people as it rises more and more. It's known as the Creeping Death, and it's the main antagonist in this game. You need to fight against your opponent in 1490 Doom, but you also need to get away from the Creeping Death. The game is played on another small 2-foot by 2-foot board, but they suggest that the board be round instead of square, due to the way deployment works. You don't deploy like on different zones, you deploy distances away from each other, and so the circle makes a lot more sense. If your board isn't round, you can just kind of mark a round area with dice or something, or just use your tape measure or whatever. Also, the game is about height as well. You need to be the last one standing at the end, and you need to be standing at the highest point that you can in the final round, which is usually the 7th round. If there's more than one Doom company, which is what they call the war bands, alive at the end, then it's a fight to the death. Other interesting things about 1490 Doom, the game is miniature agnostic, of course. I do love me some miniature agnostic games. And you only have 3 models in your Doom company. You pick from 7 different pre-made character types like Scavenger, Warrior, Priest, Assassin, etc., and then you equip them with weapons from the weapon list. The gameplay is fast, and there's a lot of rules specific to climbing and falling, since the game is all about being at the apex of the terrain by the end, and a lot of deaths happen by falling from being pushed and all that type of stuff. There's also advanced rules and even campaign play if you want to do that as well. It's PDF only currently. And lastly, very quickly, the Bamboo Lab A1 printer. I just made a video about it last week, but it's had a huge impact on my hobby this year. It's a filament printer, not a liquid resin printer, which means less mess and fewer fumes, mostly. It's great for printing terrain, but with an incredible kind of simple nozzle swap. You just buy this nozzle, it's $12, there's a clip and some stuff you got to move around. It's very easy to swap nozzles, even I can do it. And then you make some setting changes into the software, you could potentially even print some minis as well. It's also pretty much the most plug-and-play 3D printer out there. I was up and printing in less than an hour when I got mine. For more info, watch last week's video. Pachow. So there they are, the winners of the 2024 Tabletop Minions Awards. Congrats to all the winners, and if you're interested in checking any of them out, take a look at all the links down in the description below. These are my choices, but what are yours? What did I miss? Let us all know, again, down in the comments below, and while you're down there, please engage in depressmentation of the like button just one more time in 2024, unless you want to go watch other videos that I've done and then like those as well. You could do it then as well if you want to, but it helps the video out, and clicking is good exercise too, I've heard. Subscribe for more videos every single week, and thanks for watching.